So I think sometimes the wellness industry itself can be really viewed as inaccessible. It's certainly not affordable. And I think this goes back to what you were talking about, Erica, earlier
Yeah.
about how this is a huge passion of yours, making wellness and the food industry in general more affordable and accessible. And so I'm curious, like, how do we start to do that? Like, what have you guys found? I know you've talked to so many people, and this is a huge passion of yours. And so I would really love to spend, a little bit of time talking about it.
Yeah, I think it is something, like I said, that's really it's something that we're both very passionate about.
Mhm.
And at that time, like I said, I was on free lunch program at school. My mom was working two jobs. We would get fast food after school because it was $1 and convenient. And yeah, and we didn't even have, I don't think we had health insurance when I was in middle school. Like it was that serious. And so, we were so fortunate in so many ways as well, because we had a family friend who was a doctor. And, I was in a community that I'd grown up with people who knew my family. But again, it's something that Aly and I are so passionate about because I've been um, to wellness events when we still had them in person. And um, the things people can be very out of touch. And I just remember I asked a question at one, it was a panel. And I think we have to speak up, right? Like about like with
Mhm.
anything, when we see the out of touchness happening,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
We have to speak up. We have to ask questions because, to be honest, I've heard so many times, like who would feed their children fast food, or you have to make the time to cook. And so making the time is such a luxury. Like time is such a luxury. And so
Yeah.
many people are working two or three jobs and then have to feed their family. And I'm sorry, like, I don't care if someone tells me, like, well, you can use food stamps now at farmers market or you can do this. Yes, that all might be true. But if you're coming off like a 15-hour day and you have three little kids to feed and you can get a full meal for your family for $5, how are we competing with that? Right? Like,
Mhm.
how are we competing with that? And it's such an education too. Issue as well, because to be honest, until I got into this world, I had no idea. I thought healthy were 100-calorie packs. So many people are living thinking things are healthy that are not actually healthy, right? We're all children. I feel like we're all similar age, where we grew up in the 90s, the early 2000s, the 2010s. And it really was, right? Like low fat, like no fat, like all this just bad crap for you that is still ingrained in so many people that is healthy. And we're just making ourselves sick, and
Yeah.
we're just a sick nation. So there's so many problems, but I think for me, really speaking up when we see the injustices in our own community is something that's really important to Aly and I. We have really hard conversations on our podcast, and like we said, we're not afraid to raise our hand at an event and talk about these things. But yeah, we have to have dialogue. We have to talk
Yeah.
about it because a lot of people are just out of touch and they don't realize it, and they've never, right? It's easy to say, well, make the time or use your food stamp at farmers market, but if you've never lived it, you don't think, well, how do they even get to the farmers market? And people are living in food deserts where they don't even have access to fresh food, even if their food stamps would cover the fresh food. So there's so many issues. And then
Mhm.
in addition to that, Aly and I, in our own company and with our own brand, accessibility is very, very important to us. We launched, I don't know when this is going to be released, but as of March 1st, Aly and I created a Patreon page for accessible health coaching education
Mm.
content. It's a subscription service where we're going to be offering 4 videos a month of educational nutrition tools and habit building content with recipes and resources and so much more. But that's all going to be accessed for $8.99 a month. So
Mm.
no matter who you are, no matter where you're at, for 2 cups of coffee, if you want to educate yourself on nutrition and have a health coach, which can also like be very inaccessible,
Yeah.
you can do that for $8.99 a month. So it's just something that I feel like is embedded in everything Aly and I do.
Mhm.
That's our goal.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, we're certainly striving to. And I think it'll continue to evolve as we continue to evolve. And But yeah, Erica and I, like she just mentioned, with the creation of the subscription service, we want to be able to bring health coaching, if people want access to it, in a way that is accessible and affordable. Because you're right, it's like it's not affordable, and it's also kind of, it's not inclusive either.
No.
And I think that's a really important conversation. And we've had that conversation probably for a couple of years now on the podcast, because the second we became immersed in this world, especially of Los Angeles wellness, and people might look at us, I mean, we're two white blonde women, to be honest, but
Three
that's
of us
like,
are at this
that's
point,
right.
right?
Yeah.
So 100%. Yeah.
But we started going to these events, and we're like, why does everybody white and blonde and seemingly very wealthy, which we came from a point of like, okay, like even though we're in this world, like this seems really inaccessible.
Yeah.
And so we actually started branching out at that point and going to events in different parts of the country. And we went to Philly to like this huge wellness event, which was so fun. And we started doing episodes on how we can make this stuff, if people want access to it, make it more accessible to anybody who wants it, because this shouldn't cost a lot of money. And
No.
if you can invest even a teeny tiny bit of money, like $8 a month, you might be able to also, as someone who had cancer, you might also be able to not fall into the amount of like insane expense of healthcare in this country. And that's another conversation. I mean, listen, we could talk for years about the problems in healthcare, the problems in the food industry, food, Erica mentions food deserts. It's even called food apartheid because it's so racially discriminating. We know now with COVID numbers how especially communities of color are suffering way more, and the death rates are way higher. And it's all inextricably linked, our food system, our healthcare system. And so we don't want to perpetuate anything that's not helpful to like most people. We want to create ways to open up access. And so, we're not perfect at it, but we're trying, and I'm really excited about our Patreon subscription. And we will be offering through that too, even one-on-one private office hours every week. So it might not be like, weekly individual hour sessions with a health coach, but even for $8 a month, you're going to have access to private health coaching services. So, yeah.
That's very cool. I'm excited for you both because I think that's a really important step forward in making knowledge and information more accessible.